All right, it's talk time now on the program. As Nigeria moves to diversify its economy, one of the major areas of focus is the extractive industry. That industry is majorly made of informal miners, something the Minister of Solid Minerals, Kayode Fayemi, is worried about.
And Fayemi wants a situation where the sector would be formalized and operators pay taxes and royalties. He's also pushing for a focus on industrial minerals.
Nigeria is a nation endowed with many natural resources. Sadly, the sector has suffered various setbacks due to policy shifts. Due to the uncertainty in the sector, many private investors have left the country. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Kayode Fayemi, says not much attention has been paid to the sector over the years, and this has grounded the mining sector to a halt. He added that the global mining market is in turmoil as key sources of demand that supported prices over the past 2 decades have declined.
We're going to focus a lot on industrial minerals that can help us achieve import substitution in the country, because there are so many things that we have that we can work on. This is a matter that Mr. President is seized of, and I am reasonably confident that before the end of the first quarter of 2016, we would have a direction as to whether we're taking it over and running it ourselves or resolving the legal issues involved.
He added that the global mining market is in turmoil as key sources of demand that supported prices over the past 2 decades have declined.
We're going to focus a lot on industrial minerals that can help us achieve import substitution in the country, because there are so many things that we have that we can work on. This is a matter that Mr. President is seized of, and I am reasonably confident that before the end of the first quarter of 2016, we would have a direction as to whether we're taking it over and running it ourselves or resolving the legal issues involved.
The trajectory of Nigeria's extractive industry has not been without controversy. The minister says there is need to build an emerging industry like the Ajokuta mining that will support Nigeria's industrialization and expansion of low-cost coal-generated power. This, he says, will earn foreign exchange and generate tax revenues for government at all levels.
Much of Nigeria's mining is conducted informally at levels as high as 80% of activity in some regions of the country are not necessarily of naira earnings. We need to bring these informal miners into a legalized framework, making them real startup miners and ensuring they pay government the right set of taxes and royalties. I want to be clear, there will no longer be a free lunch, as the Mining Act will be firmly enforced henceforth.
The solid minerals share of GDP is currently put at 400 million naira per annum, but is expected to grow over the coming years as this administration shifts its focus gradually away from oil. But the mining sector can only improve if Nigeria and our partners create a profitable and sustainable policy for solid minerals growth. That is a task the Solid Minerals Minister says is determined to achieve.
Okay, we're looking at the Solid Minerals and Finance, Ministries this morning. And joining us now is a former president of the Nigerian-German Business Group in Germany, Joe Femi Daguro. He's already a friend of the house. Guten Morgen to you.
It's nice to see you. Yeah. You always sell me off when you guys come up here. I'm going to start my German lessons. And
you have to.
Fine. We also have joining us is a Solid Minerals and Energy consultant, Tony Nwakalor from our Abuja studio. Tony, good morning. It's good to have you join us from Abuja today. You've always been in the studio, but good morning. It's good to have you. Yeah. Now, let me start with you on solid minerals, Tony, before we come to Femi in the studio. If you listen to the clip we just played earlier on, was a statement from the Minister of Solid Minerals in late 2015, saying that by the beginning of first quarter of 2016, there would have been a direction in the area of solid mineral mining, and where by 2016, towards the end of 2016, government should have been, they should start benefiting from the system. What is your assessment of all of that right now?
Thank you. First of all, when you talk about the first quarter of 2016, what has happened is the roadmap has been developed. A 17-man steering committee chaired by Professor Garba, or co-chaired by Professor Garba and Professor Sion Malomo, have concluded the roadmap, the solid minerals roadmap. So what we have now is the process of waiting for the mining implementation strategy team to start to deliver on its immediate and short-term initiatives, being import substitution.
Okay, let's come back to the studio here with Femi Dagunro. Well, Kayode Femi, you know, when he came on board, he did make a number of promises, just like his other, colleagues in other ministries, to make solid minerals the vehicle of diversifying the Nigerian economy. 1 year after, are you seeing any of that, happening, at least maybe the foundations for that to actually happen?
Well,
is that even in place?
Like the gentleman said, there will always be committees set up. There will always be so many committees, subcommittee, ad hoc committee. We have so many committees and so many that will still be set up in this ministry. But let me say something. He said this has been neglected for a long time, which we all agree, we all know. And for him to have made that audacious statement about the first quarter of 2016, I think it was just being, excited to say, look, I'm going to perform, I want to do something. And maybe a couple of MOUs have been signed, and I'm saying it. I'm not impressed when people say they've signed MOUs, and MOUs is absolute nonsense. But we have to begin to see, are we making effort to bring in investors into that sectors? And if we are making efforts to bring in investors into that, which I think is making a stride in that direction anyway. He has traveled a couple of places, and I think he's making a good direction. This is the first time we'll be hearing efforts, genuine efforts being made, and a minister that is committed going forward with all these efforts and coming out to tell us these are the things. He's making it a little bit more transparent. He's making it more convenient for people to come into the country, and he's expressing his mind openly. And I think there's a good thing coming up there. I think we just have to wait. This cannot happen overnight. I have to emphasize that. We need a couple of years. Mining sector is a very difficult sector for people to bring in their money to invest. They have to look at the stability, the expertise as well. And I don't think we have enough trained manpower in that direction as well. And you just heard it, Ajaokuta, for how many years? It seems it's just a waste. And this guy has a lot of tasks. Don't forget, when Ezekwesili was there, she couldn't do anything as well. So we have all this talk, but this guy is making some move. We have to give it to him. Then how far he can go, we do not know. The government have to be, they have to prioritize some of this industry, the sectors. And I think the sector they are looking into mostly now is agriculture. So mining could be maybe next year or two, we'll begin to see more. But the first thing now is prioritize the sectors that you really want to go in. This is something where, this is the area where we can make so much money if we develop it. But we've seen what is going on in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in some of these other countries. Yes. It's not an easy thing to run and to manage, and nobody's just coming into this country and put that huge amount of money, huge millions of dollars into that investment. It's about time we begin to look at that, but it has to be a gradual thing. I'm not going to expect that within the next 1 or 2 years we'll see the boom in the mining sector, but the strategy to implementation of all these policies is what we are
so
looking at.
The roadmap is a good place to start.
You just have to have a roadmap. If you don't have a roadmap, how do you even plan? How do you go into this? And the investors want to see the roadmap. They want to see your policies. But it's enough to have a policy, but how do you implement what you have in the policy? Implementation, part of it is always a detrimental part if care is not taken.
All right. Now, the whole solid mineral system or industry, if I have to put it that way, is very unstructured, where you have informal people, women, youth, mining and breaking stones with their bare hands and all of that. Now, the government minister is talking about trying to put these people together so they can even pay royalties together. But if you put all of them together, if you go to Nasarawa State, you go to Niger State, you go to Kaduna State, you know, they're all found in that region, in Plateau State and in parts of Benue State and all of that. How much would all of them, you know, pay to government, even if they are put together?
That's what I'm saying, that the policy is good. We have to know what this policy is all about. We have to see how the implementation, you have seen even in Congo, in some other areas, there people could go even to war because of these mineral resources that are there. You have seen, but the point is, those are not the kind of people we need to tackle, we need to focus on right now. Those are not the people that will pay royalty, that will move this country forward. I mean, we need people that will really come and you will license them. I'm not against the fact that that is something we have to do. We cannot just, afford that people just go and do what they like and hurt themselves and, not organize. And before you know it, you have some sort of people who are really a kingpin again, and there could be war in that area. But the point is, let us first of all look at the licensing. Is it going to be a cumbersome thing to license anyone? If you get the people, if your licensing procedure is a good one, people will begin to look at it. And let us look at the dots on these agreements we're going to sign with people. We don't want to make the same mistakes we made in the communication sector, in the electrical sector, in the electricity sector. There are a lot of mistakes that have been made. So we can learn from it when we're issuing licenses to all these investors that will be coming. I'm not sure we will have a lot of investors coming up this year or next year, but I know that investors may look into it, looking at the fact that if processes are not cumbersome, if our processes are very straightforward and very dynamic for them to really come in. Because if not, these little guys you see here and there doing all these things, how much are they making? But then look at it. You can say how much are they making, and some people are buying it from them. Who are the buyers of this?
That's the big question.
Who are the buyers of this? So you have to look at the buyers who are really making the heavy profit out of it. Those are the people that the government should look at.
Okay, now, Tony Nwakalor, well, we've been told that in gold mining, for example, in Nigeria, there are about 4,000 or so illegal miners, taking advantage of the loopholes provided by whoever in that sector,
the lack of structure.
The lack of structure, thank you. So for Kayode Fayemi, so that by this time next year, in the next 1 year, for him to be able to actually say, look, these are the successes I've been able to record in this sector. What do we need, for him to put in place going forward? You talked about the roadmap, which you do commend, and all of that. What are the things that he needs to move the sector?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to, comment on some of the things that the other speaker said while he was speaking. I don't totally agree that under the administration of General Olusegun Obasanjo, when Obi Ezekwesili was minister, a lot of the work we are benefiting from now was actually done under her watch. A lot of the mapping, the whole country is mapped. I think I agree with him to the extent that we don't have as much capacity. But I think more than anything else, the knowledge gap is very serious. Even from analysis, when you hear some of the things that people are talking about, you see that there's a gap. The roadmap has already been approved. The roadmap is a very detailed document. The roadmap is also very clear on what the short-term, medium-term and long-term initiatives are. The roadmap is also clear as regards how much the country wants to generate in terms of GDP in the next 10 years, which is $27 billion. And that's a very tall order. So we want to look now purely at the structure. The artisanal miners make up a department under the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development. You cannot take them out of the system or consider them as being less important because they make up 80 to 90% of all of those who are mining right now. Now, when you talk about gold, gold is mined either as alluvial, which is the placer deposits on the surface, which is what most of the artisans do, or then you have primary mineralization, which is actually in the ground. What has been happening is this. The policy in Nigeria is very competitive.
All right, Tony.
If you look at issues of taxation.
Tony, I'm going to put you on hold a little bit. We'll go on a break and then we'll come back for you to lay your idea as you're giving them to us right now. Stay with us. All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and at this moment we are discussing solid minerals, and certainly we'll also look at finance. The ministries, Nigerians have been, making a lot of comments as to how these ministries are performing 1 year after. And a lot of people have a lot to say, especially when it comes to what they were expecting and what they are seeing right now. But we're discussing with Jofemi Dagunro. He's in the studio with us here in Lagos, and we have Tony Nwakalor with us in Abuja, in our Abuja studio, discussing this. Now, Tony, you were giving us information when Ngozi asked you earlier on, what does it really take to make the solid minerals become the real solid minerals when it comes to being solid on ground?
Okay, so what I was trying to say is the policy we have in Nigeria is very competitive when you look at other mining jurisdictions like Australia, like Chile, like South Africa and Botswana. So you look at things, first of all, like taxation. What is the standard taxation? What happens in America? What happens in Canada? You know, the corporate taxation to mining companies is between 20 and 30% in Nigeria. That's the same thing that applies in these jurisdictions I mentioned. You look at things like education tax of 2%, capital gain tax. These are all standard tax requirements for mining jurisdictions. You look at issues like how the structure of the ministry. You have the Mines Inspectorate Department that is responsible for collecting royalties and payments from mining companies and basically to oversee their operations. You have the Mines Environmental Compliance Department that is responsible for ensuring that there is compliance with environmental laws as provided for in the Environmental Impact Assessment, which you require to get a mining lease from an exploration licenses after fulfilling what is called your minimum work obligation. I think that the country has one of the best laws in the world. What the issue is you cannot have real revenue coming in when you do not have the government treating it almost how they treated the oil and gas industry, and I'll tell you why. The 5 classes of minerals, whether they be the precious minerals, the metallic ores, the industrial minerals, the construction minerals, or the energy minerals, which are the 5 classes, whichever one you want to go into, you would realize that there's a great demand for Nigerian ores, but you cannot have artisans being able to carry out this environmental impact assessment to get mining leases. You cannot have artisans carrying out mine planning and design. So what you have is a lot of people who want to eke out a living, because obviously you know that these mines are located in very remote areas, especially in the northwest and north central parts of Nigeria. So what the government needs to do to achieve these quick wins, in my opinion, is they need to go into partnerships with existing license holders. There's over 600 title holders. I don't know what we are looking for the foreigners for. As far as I'm concerned, Nigerian geologists have the capacity, Nigerian mining engineers have the capacity. Exploration isn't that complex. Okay, so I just want to make it, I want to simplify this, it's not a quick win, or it's going to be long term. That's not exactly correct. The NGSA has done absolutely marvelous work, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, fine. Of course, the essence of this discussion, of course, is to, take a look back at the 1 year of this cabinet in place, giving them some kind of, check out what the scorecard is. Let's find out what the people in Port Harcourt, saying about these ministers 1 year after.
Being a minister, you must be a professional. And their appointments are based on politics. It all have undertone of politics. And I think professionals should handle ministries.
The leadership of Nigerians, the ministers, most of them, I can use the word, they don't have Nigeria in their mind.
The president is one person. And in every system of government, you have people you hire to work to make your government a better one, but it's not seen.
1 year plus is enough for someone to change whatever I want to change. That's my reason why I say they have not performed well, which he need to look inward and know the kind of people he must remove and bring new people.
In this country now, oil have dropped, not just like before. When oil was 100 and something dollars, So oil have dropped. So I think we should give them more time. 1 year is not enough.
That's according to the people in Port
Nigerians are reacting there.
Some of them. Let's look at some of the achievements of, Fayemi. According to experts, Tony did talk about the roadmap, that's in place. There's a bill for a regulatory body for the solid mineral sector like the NDDC that's been, put before the National Assembly, and settlement of ownership of Ajaokuta Steel. That's a surprising one, by securing an agreement with an Indian company. I don't know if you're aware of that one. But, Nigeria is still losing about 4 trillion naira to illegal mining on a yearly basis.
While I'm not an expert on this particular industry, but I want to let Tony understand one thing that, you see, excuse me, this is a national issue, and what we are saying is not because we are perfect to do the thing ourselves, all of us sitting there. It is good to do the mapping. It is good to, have brilliant people. Nigerians are brilliant wherever you put them. They are good all over the world. But the point is, sometimes there are a lot of, he has just said it, that just like the oil and gas, we've seen all these DPPR and all these departments in oil and gas, and we still have tremendous problem with our oil and gas industry. And these are the kind of problems we should try as much as possible to avoid when we are developing a new industry. I'm not saying that the industry has not been before independence. We have these natural resources everywhere.
But charting a new course.
But when we are saying to be structured and make sure that even we have funding, if you have fantastic, I met a lady, a geologist in Madagascar the other time, and I'm surprised that that this is a Nigerian here doing something great. You see, so you have Nigerians all over the place, but the point is, who funds this thing? Do they have the understanding of the industry? Do they have the understanding of this roadmap? Do they have the understanding of the policies? We have to make sure that we understand these policies and the roadmap, how it will, end up giving us that money, that royalty, not the money into an individual purse, but the money into the government purse. We need to grow the industry, and that is what I'm saying. So now, if you look at what the Nigerians are saying, Nigerians are most times very impatient, and they say, look, 1 year, what have they done? And you can hear what the people are saying, but it's only a few of us that will say, look, 1 year is not enough because of what was there before. So we have to make sure that we carry this message to the people and say, look, 1 year might be too long, but it's not enough. But what are these people doing within this 1 year? That's what people want to know. Is he doing something? Yes. They are doing something. Fayemi is doing something in that industry.
Yes, including an intervention fund for really serious.
Those are the kind of things we just have to say. They are doing something, but it might not be enough compared to what they have done before. But give them some time. More will still be achieved. That is the bottom line.
All right, Tony, let's get to you here. When it comes to mining, we know that South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, you mentioned it earlier on, are countries in Africa, even Congo, and some other African countries are very involved where there is huge investment in mining, and they're getting benefits for it. Coming into Nigeria, where the government said we want to diversify, leave oil and gas, get into solid minerals, get into agriculture, but we're narrowing to solid minerals in right now. What would it really take to bring all the big boys in, to bring all the capital in, to bring all the equipment in, and then drill, and then start something where Nigeria can benefit?
We already have everything here. It's like buying a new television, and then the manual is in Chinese and you can't read it. So everything is available. There's nothing stopping you in the studio from going to the mining cadastral office to request for an exploration or a small-scale mining lease or an artisanal mining license. If Nigerians don't take the bull by the horn, expecting that the big players, what we call the mining majors like BHP, Billiton, those are the equivalents of your Shells and Chevrons in the other half of the extractive industry, that's the oil and gas. So you have BHP, Billiton, Anglo-American, Vale, Rio Tinto. These companies own a lot of the mining assets in South Africa. They buy up mines. Would they want to come to Nigeria? I'm not really sure right now. Reason being, there's something called the Fraser's Index. It's a rating of policy perception of mining jurisdictions. And this is what the investors need to look at. And Nigeria has been non-existent on this index. And therefore, even if you go for all of this international mining in Davos and international summits, you would make presentations, but I'm not sure you would have their financial people really want to bring money into a system where you haven't even built a foundation. This is where the Ministry of Solid Minerals must take initiative.
All right, so Tony, on a final note, how would you score the Ministry of Solid Minerals in this last 1 year? Very quickly.
I think they've done well, and I think they're going to do better.
Okay, obviously both of you gentlemen are on the same page with this one. All right, we'll take a short break and return with more. Stay with us.
We've also recovered quite a lot of property, real estate, some of which we have converted into office space because selling it at the moment we don't think we'll get good value. So what we've done is try to convert it into office space. So some of our agencies who are renting are now making preparations to move into some of these properties.
Okay.
All right. The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, talking about the recovery of embezzled government funds, a major index in the federal government's anti-corruption drive. Okay, now Ministry of Finance is in the center of the ability to transform or turn the whole country around when it comes to where it was and where it wants to go. The diversification project, the Made in Nigeria dream and all of that, the Ministry of Finance is in the center of all of this. One way or the other, they've come with different monetary policies that one way or the other doesn't work at the end of the day. What's responsible for all of this?
Well, you have to begin to look at it from the beginning that, first of all, it took the government almost 6 months to prepare and to select or get the nomination to get the ministers. And now, you know, the ministerial appointments are just political thing. It's not as if you have somebody who has been trained or who has been groomed for this position. And Minister Kemi Adeosun was appointed to be the Minister of Finance. So she found herself...
But she had been a Commissioner of Finance.
Yes, but not at the federal level. Federal level is quite different. She's coming from the private sector. She, has not managed this enormous, huge budget before. And then another thing you now did was the government now splitted the Ministry of Finance and carved out the budget and planning. You know, you remember this is one of the things Okonjo-Iweala was saying that, look, if you try that with me, I resign. You know, and that's why she became superpower in the cabinet. So,
and you had something like coordinator of the economy.
Yes, and she now tried because she wanted to know and how to do all this. You know, and she even dictated her own pay, kind of. All these things are the past. But so now you have the budget and planning, and we have seen what happened through the budget presentation and all the problems that were associated with it. So now, if you look at the ministry, I don't know, but I think it was overwhelming for her at the beginning, and we're not even hearing so much from that ministry. And a few times you say, oh, this woman is just very eloquent and carved out the budget and planning. You know, you remember this is one of the things Okonjo-Iweala was saying that, look, if you try that with me, I resign. You know, and that's why she became superpower in the cabinet. So,
and you had something like coordinator of the economy.
Yes, and she now tried because she wanted to know and how to do all this. You know, and she even dictated her own pay, kind of. All these things are the past. But so now you have the budget and planning, and we have seen what happened through the budget presentation and all the problems that were associated with it. So now, if you look at the ministry, I don't know, but I think it was overwhelming for her at the beginning, and we're not even hearing so much from that ministry. And a few times you say, oh, this woman is just very eloquent and we can't even understand what she says. So, but right now I think she's getting grasp with the whole thing, and she's beginning to understand, she's beginning to go out more, she's beginning to speak more and telling the public, this is the problem we have, this is how we'll go about it. And, you know, initially when they say, look, we're not going to take a loan, and now we say we want to take a loan.
Yes.
And so many things that are contradictory in our policies. And then at the same time, when, you know, she had this kind of open confrontation, kind of, I say quote and unquote, when we say, look, the central bank should not do this and the central bank should do this and all that. And at the end, the central bank, the MPC, they went on and, did their own thing, not considering what she has said. So it's like people are now saying that, look, is there a kind of bad blood going on? This is about monetary policy from the central bank. This is about fiscal policy. These two people should have been working in tandem. And then you have the problem with budget implementation, who gets what and how. So, you see that there are a lot of confusion in between the whole system. But I think maybe the president wants to just be in charge and say, listen, let me be in charge so that whatever that will happen. You see a lot of analysts and experts, they've said, look, even we don't have economic team. They've said so much about that, and we're looking at it that every time we begin to say, what I think we need to do is not just to wake up and begin to change these policies. Policies are not meant for, even if you have a daily policy or weekly policy, but monetary policy and fiscal policies and these government policies, just like the other guy said, the retired colonel said, yes, we don't even have foreign policies. So all these policies, I don't know why we can't articulate, or when we articulate, we put them on a set time, that within the next 1 year, short time, medium time, and long time. So we now follow it up. But every time we come up with new suggestions, new ideas, new policies, it's confusing to people.
All right, Tony Nwakalor, would you be on the same page then with Joe, who says, the finance minister seems to have gotten over the learning curve, and she seems to have maybe a better understanding of, the demands of her ministry. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think she had an understanding from the get-go. That's the issue is not the understanding. The issue is that we have a currency crisis because Nigeria is a monoproduct economy. We finance everything through oil and gas. I mean, there's not much you can do when you only earn your foreign exchange through oil and the prices have dropped. She's not a magician. If the country isn't earning money, then there's no money to finance your fiscal budget. If you look at the issues of the MPR, which is controlled by the central bank, they're trying to, they control the inflation and the interest rate. But obviously, what they classified our economy as going through is stagflation, where you have stagnation of growth and inflation at the same time. That's a very unique situation to have because they usually don't occur together. So you have the MPR, which is your money policy rate at 14%, and that is the rate, the benchmark rate at which the central bank lends money to deposit money banks. You cannot diversify an economy with that kind of interest rates. It will suffocate any business. So in my opinion, the balance of payment deficits, the balance of payment crisis that we have in Nigeria, because we're a consumption-based economy, is just the symptoms are what we're seeing. There's nothing the Minister of Finance can do up until there is another revenue stream that earns the much-needed foreign exchange, like solid minerals.
But you would expect, sorry, Mike, you just talked about, budget deficit, which was one of the things she actually promised, to increase government expenditure on infrastructure and fund budget deficit and negative balance cost effectively. Now, based on this, projection of hers, do you think she's delivered on this particular point?
I did not say budget deficit. I said balance of payments.
Okay.
Balance of payments, meaning that all of the goods produced, our general outputs, right now we are importing more than we are exporting, if we are exporting anything at all. And this is all financed through foreign exchange, which is non-existent.
Okay. Tony, we'll come back to you on this. Now, TVC Breakfast went to the streets of Lagos to find out what residents think of the performance of ministers after 1 year in office. So we went to Port Harcourt earlier on. Let's hear Lagos residents.
They're not doing anything. I'm not working towards it. Nothing. So I can't really give them a better score for now.
I cannot even say what they perform because as in the regulation is going, we are still managing ourselves.
I can say they are trying, but we have not yet seen. But well, we are hoping for the best.
The impact of the ministers have not been felt at all.
They are not even trying at all. They are just only feeding themselves. They are not even thinking about the people outside. They are not even thinking about us at all.
All right, you heard from Lagos residents as well, the average person on the streets, and what they said seemed to complement what Port Harcourt residents also say.
Yeah, it's more like below average.
Below average, as far as they are concerned.
Oh, well, I tell you what, Mike, if it's below average, you're right. Because the thing is this, just like I was saying, you know, right from day one, the budget was prepared with a deficit, which we know we don't have the money to fund. And if you have a budget that you don't have the money to fund, you have to go for loan. How do you raise this? And I said it, under the Ministry of Finance, you have the Federal Inland Revenue. So they've been collecting, they've been doing a lot of wonderful things. It might not be known to most of us, but they have been doing a lot of things, and more will still come. Under the Ministry of Finance, you have the customs. Under the Ministry of Finance, you have all these things generating locally, I mean, money, real money. And they're bringing it into the coffer. They've improved from what they were doing before to a new standard. But the point is this. If you come out the first time and say, look, we're not going to take a loan, when you know that you don't have the money. As at now, you have about 23.9 something billion in your reserve. So if you go and take a loan again of about 30 point something billion, that is something to discuss thereafter. But the thing is this, we are running a deficit budget, which is not a big deal, kind of, because, I mean, this is a government. Then the point is when he said...
But they already knew they were going to take, you know, external and, you know...
But at the beginning, they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to devalue our naira. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And the later part, we're doing some of these things we say we can't do. If you say the interest rate and all those things, these are the things people have been hearing. The thing is about foreign exchange. Where do we get foreign exchange? When we know that, you know, our benchmark for oil was about 38, now the thing has gone to about, you know, up and down about 40 something. So now, if we say we're diversifying, the diversification we're making cannot be overnight. You can't diversify into agriculture and say, look, you want to make that money overnight. In between this period, you are funding, and then we have seen the funding of infrastructure. I can tell you that when you look at what is happening today, Fashola's ministry, this combined ministry, has been able to improve on so many things. I mean, that we have to look into. I mean, that is still something, money is coming from somewhere to fund all those things. We cannot fund everything at it go. That is why we have to be selective. What are those important things right now? Everything seems to be important. Everything should be in one basket. But what are those areas? Let's pick some structural areas and say, look, these are the areas we have to do. And I keep saying it, we still have to meet with the investors locally as well and beginning to encourage them. Taxes, yes. But then there are so many things you are bringing into the same thing. The other day, the Minister of Communication said, we are going to tax the SMS and all those things. That's not a good signal. The people, they already say, no, we won't want that. So there are some regimes of taxation that will still come on board. The people have to be prepared before we begin to do this. So if you have a policy that will guide the nation, let's begin to tell the people these are the things we want to do. And the masses, you can see the masses, they can't understand what is going on. And that is why there is no information flowing to them in their own language, that this is what is going on. Okay. We can't continue to speak this grammar for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get to Tony. We don't have all the time, but Tony, let me ask you this. The president recently, a few days ago, said the ministers should work hard to earn the trust of Nigerians on one hand. And from what we've seen so far, the Minister of Finance and even the CBN governor had been not in tandem with each other when it comes to their public pronouncement, even on the same platform when they stand together sometime. We know that oil output has stabilized for several weeks or months now, as the case may be, but we still don't seem to have that light at the end of the tunnel. What's your assessment on that?
Your question is, you say the oil prices have stabilized?
Oil output has stabilized. We know, because there has been complaints of the fact that the militancy in the Niger Delta has been responsible for Nigeria not making a lot of money, but we have seen some level of stability.
Okay, so we have to put that assertion in context, because I think the benchmark was 2.2 million barrels per day. I don't think we're anywhere close to that right now. Even in the MTEF, the medium-term expenditure framework, I think it was 2.2. I'm not really sure what the figure is, but we're not anywhere close to that. And we're already aware that there's been recent agitation and bombings in the Niger Delta, which has affected our gas output and our crude oil output. The challenge really that the government is facing is you cannot take a loan to build infrastructure, because the infrastructure doesn't pay the loan. So we need to see a bit more than that. What will the infrastructure lead to in terms of business, in terms of trade? Is the railway going to be used to facilitate movement of iron ore from Kogi State to Apapa Terminal? Are we going to expand our seaports I'm not really clear about what this loan is going to be put into, so that we can have key performance indicators to measure and evaluate the success.
Of course, talking about rail, that will be within the purview of the Transportation Minister. Of course, we'll be looking at all of these ministries in the course of the week. But we'll have to say thank you to Tony Nwakalor, energy consultant, and Joe Femi Dagunro, developmental economist. Or is it development economist?
That's development economist. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Yeah. Time couldn't permit us to dwell more on this, but it's still good we talked about it. Thank you.